let us all do we can to build a better future.
All right. So, look, first I want to introduce this story by bringing up somebody else here. For those of you who don't know, and I got to be very careful how I word this. If you've been following the recent updates on Twitter, Eliza Blue, who is a survivor advocate, if you're not following on Twitter, please do so. She, for a very long time, has been trying to bring up to the previous people who were running Twitter, not Elon Musk, but the previous people who were running Twitter, about questionable and very dangerous and hazardous material that was being shared on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think, again, I got to be very careful what I say on YouTube because YouTube will strike us. But it's material that is extremely criminal, and the people who partake in it should be locked away for forever. And Eliza Blue was recently smeared by the news outlets, the Washington Post. The Washington Post, which is also now owned by Jeff Bezos. Now, the Washington Post, to be fair, has occasionally done some good stories here and there, but for the most part, has been completely corporate, completely given one agenda, and that is just making sure no one shakes the apple cart of the neoliberal system. And recently now, Washington Post publisher Fred Ryan refuses to take questions from the staff announcing the first quarter layoffs in a town hall. So we got this video here. It's only about 25 seconds long. But Lainey, we've been talking about this.
We were reporting on it last week.
Yep. And
media layoffs. So let's look at it.
Yeah. And the thing is, look, here's the thing. The Washington Post, yes, have they done some good stories here and there? Yes, they have. But for the most part, they have been on the wrong side of history, from smearing Bernie Sanders and progressives to that hateful smear piece that they did on Eliza Blue.
And being a CIA paper, Operation Mockingbird.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I almost forgot that. Thank you so much. And I think after this video plays, if you could bring that up and elaborate a little bit more on that, I think our viewing audience would appreciate it. So this is about, as it stands right now, 2.7 million views on it. Washington Post employees are now wondering about the layoffs. And the thing is, where do I stand on the Washington Post? Maybe falling apart and going into the trash bin of failed media outlets. I'm all for it. I'm all for independent media because, especially after this recent article and their smear piece towards Eliza Blue and the good that she is doing, can't believe I gotta say this again one more time. The good, GOOD, that she is doing, Washington Post decides to smear her. So listen, Jeff Bezos, I hope that this Washington Post blows up because you know what? On behalf of on the good work that Eliza Blue is doing, I hope that the Washington Post just incinerates, just goes away.
Brad, you talked about positions getting eliminated. What are you going to do to protect people's jobs? Are they going to be treated like the magazine staffers were?
We'll have more information as we move forward. Thank you very much.
And how many positions have you decided?
We're not going to turn the town hall into a grievance session.
Hold on, we'll play it again one more time.
Brad, you talked about positions getting eliminated. What are you going to do to protect people's jobs? Are they going to be treated like the magazine staffers were?
We'll have more information as we move forward. Thank you very much.
And how many positions have you decided?
Yep. And here's the thing. Anyone that was working for the Washington Post, guess what? You were a sucker. Anyone that was working for the Washington Post, hey, sorry about that, but they're going to let you go. Washington Post is going to end up like Huffington Post and BuzzFeed. That's what's going to happen.
We don't know that, but we do know that the chief executive global producer of Hardlands Media is hiring. Aren't you, Ned?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Ned is an extremely reliable executive. He is always a truth teller. So Ned, definitely you want to get your thoughts on this.
Ned, what do you think?
Yeah, he's like, you know what? Washington Post was a complete disaster. There you go. All right, mandatory thumbs up for Ned.
All right.
So for our viewing audience, could you at least elaborate, especially with how the Washington Post was intertwined with the CIA?
Okay, we keep in mind that there was the CIA, was doing an awful lot. They had their fingers in a lot of pies. And one of the things that they wanted to do was they wanted to steer public opinion to support certain U.S. interests. And, Operation Mockingbird was part of that, where they were getting into the press and they were trying, even though people were, shall we say, liberals in the sense that they supported open government and equal rights, they were not leftists in the sense that they were not communists or socialists. And so I think Operation Mockingbird kind of wanted to steer the conversation around that. You also want to keep in mind that there is some evidence showing that many of these supposedly social movements, that the political groups were also themselves part of where had the CIA, were working in collaboration with the CIA to steer the discussion, to steer the policy making. For example, Ms. Magazine is considered to have been part of that it was trying to steer the conversation around women's rights, women's liberation, and feminism in a specific direction. So we know the Washington Post. Look, I happen to think they've got some great journalists there, and they've got, particularly they had a meteorologist who I absolutely adored. They've got some great journalists. They've got some good commentary. They've got a lot of good stuff there. But to keep in mind that they are one journalistic outlet, one that is answerable to shareholders. And I'm going to point this out. This meeting that you saw there, about back in 2008, I worked for a company that was owned by the Washington Post. And they decided to basically lay off our entire Chicago office and move the company to a place in Wisconsin, where the cost of labor was lower. And we all sat at that very much that kind of meeting. And it was a troubling time because it was 2008. The markets were collapsing, which of course we all know why that happened. And so, again, but the thing is, they had to shut down a great deal of what we were doing because at the time we were contributing a significant percentage of the earnings at Washington Post, the Washington Post company, and they were answerable to their shareholders. And I remember that our revenues had been down because we were in the real estate education division. And of course, that was just tumbling in a free fall in 2008 because of the mortgage crisis. And what I can tell you is that they kept on telling us at meetings at work, oh no, the executives in the company, they all know the market is cyclical. The market is cyclical. And I said to myself, it's not the executives here. They're trying to meet the needs of the shareholders. And when you're trying to meet the needs of shareholders, that's going to compromise what your organization can do. And so, I mean, there's a lot going on here. I mean, I think that, I think it's hilarious. I don't think it's hilarious. I feel very badly for the young people and people of any age in that group who were trying to get answers because they were looking at losing their jobs. And they're saying that the layoffs are going to be in the single digits.
I don't believe that at all.
Well, they're saying that. And that doesn't, it's not much of an answer because there's a big difference between 1% and 9%. So they're all yelling and shouting at him, and he just walks off, and they're calling it like they do at one of the White House press conferences. They're shouting out those questions because that's what those people know how to do. And it was really something to wake up this morning to these tweets.
Yeah, and I know that there's recently this article came up here too with the Washington Post. Future layoffs announced at contentious Washington Post town hall. And it's quite clear that the future of a lot of these people working there is going to be up in the air. So as a final note, Lainey, really for our viewers, what do you think this means, not only for outlets like the Washington Post, but what does it mean for other media outlets too?
I'm not going to conclude right now because I've got a whole bunch of stories about the media. And we're going to look at multiple areas of the media today. But I'm going to remind you of something, Kit. You and I, back when I was the theater correspondent for a local radio program here, You
Right.
and I got to go to that wonderful, wonderful play at the Steppenwolf.
I remember that before the
That-
whole
yes.
world went crazy in
Yeah.
2020.
And it was actually in 2019. Well,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
one of the-
2019. Yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
2019.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we went there as right before. It was in the before times, as we say.
4 times.
And what I remember was that it was written about journalism in Latin America, where press freedom is very different than it is here. And it was about a woman who had been, her family had been attacked, and she was recovering from a brain injury as a result of her journalistic efforts. And we had a fantastic conversation afterwards, and you asked some great questions. And what I think that the actors on stage, the writer, the director, the people in the audience, what we're all talking about is the importance of diversity in media.
Yeah.
That we've all got biases. We've all got things that constraints on us. I work full time for myself. I have some clients, which means that I can't talk about certain topics on this show. That's a restraint that I have on me. But fortunately, not everybody else has that same restraint. So that's the importance of diversity in media. And when a journalistic outlet is being threatened, or when it has to cut back on employees, which could impact the quality of its journalism, or when it's not paying people enough. And again, if you want people to do good journalism, you have to pay them enough so that they can support themselves and their family, and that they're not as susceptible to being bought off by special interests.